So I recently had the distinct pleasure of playing a video game called Observer, pretty much by complete accident. Having downloaded a discounted bundle pack on the PlayStation Store, I was given Layers of Fear, the DLC for it, and the game that we're going to discuss today. You know, sometimes the greatest experiences happen on a whim, as I had absolutely no plans on playing this. Layers of Fear was the one that I was really trying to get into, and after beating it, I literally asked myself, why not? And just dove in. And let me tell you, what a treat that was.
The year is 2084. If they told me what the world would become, I would not have believed them. First, there was the nanophage, the disease of transition, a digital plague that swept across the land, killing thousands upon thousands of augmented souls. A heavy cost for meddling with our minds and bodies. Then came the war, the big one, the great decimation. The West killed the East killed the West. There were no winners. Except for Cairo. But still, we endured, and so it goes. The rich get richer as the poor rot away in their hovels, desperately looking for ways to escape reality. I am what they fear, a corporate tool of oppression. A despised leech that creeps into your dreams and feeds of your fears. If you don't remember, if you won't remember, that's when they call me. To access you, to gather evidence, to dredge up whatever's hiding in the darkest corners of your mind. My name is Daniel Lazarski. I'm an observer.
Observer is a video game developed by a studio named Bloober Team, as you might have guessed, the same ones that created Layers of Fear. From the title screen to the opening cutscene, Observer is a game that plants question after question in your mind. What is the nanophage? What is Chiron? What happened in the Great War? What sort of body augmentations are people doing? Why did I just wake up in my car? Who is calling me? What the hell is going on? Imagine Detroit Become Human, mixed with Soma, salted with a bit of Layers of Fear and some Fallout, served to you on a bed of freshly steamed Blade Runner. That is how I describe Observer. So, you play as Daniel Lazarski, an observer in a post-apocalyptic cyberpunk world. You wake up in your car to a phone call from a peer, and after talking for a while, the transmission is hacked.
It's all over the place, securing the area.
Covering your tracks, you mean?
Careful what you say. This is a monitor channel.
Who is this? How'd you get this frequency?
Don't you recognize me?
Adam?
Yes. Well, what's left of me? Dad.
What happened? Where have you been all this time?
It turns out that it's your son that you haven't seen in years, and he's now working for Chiron as a high-level engineer. Who is Chiron? We'll get to that in a second. Bottom line, your son needs help, and it's our mission to go find him. After triangulating his location, Daniel discovers that he lives in a C-class tenement, which is this game's version of the slums.
The stacks. You just had to hit bottom, huh? Rock fucking bottom.
Once you finally make your way over there, the game begins, and straight off the bat, the visual aesthetic kicks into high gear. Once you make your way in, you're stopped by an embattled war veteran by the name of Janice. He is the absolute embodiment of misfortune, walking with a limp, struggling to think clearly, and using what appear to be neglected prosthetics. He stops you to ask where you're going, and once you tell him, he gives you extremely vague directions to the apartment from which your son called.
Leon Grabinski.
Tenant. Oh, apartment 7. Ground floor. Through the courtyard. Turn right, turn left. Straight ahead, turn right.
Yeah, I got it. Backwards and forwards. Thanks.
On your way back there, you're able to notice posters all over the walls advertising the latest, newest implant to enhance your physical body. Each and every single one of these are made by Chiron, a cybernetic megacorporation that took advantage of the Civil War that was referenced in the opening cutscene. So once you get up to where the phone call was made, you encounter a headless body and begin to have a panic attack. This ends up triggering a building-wide lockdown that you're tasked with lifting. Once you calm down by administering Synchrozine, the game's version of a mild sedative, you're tasked with investigating the crime scene. 2 different investigative modes are at your disposal here, biological and technical. When combining the two, you're able to piece together clues at the various crime scenes that you'll be experiencing throughout this game. Here, though, you're left with more questions than answers. While you are eventually able to lift the room's lockdown to escape, you're still left wondering what the hell it was that happened to the body, and who it was that did it. This is where the game really begins to shine. After making your way out of his room, you're tasked with none other than asking the residents for clues. The game presents this in such a unique way that I seriously could have spent hours doing just this. Since the rest of the building is still in lockdown, the only way to talk to people in their rooms is through a telecom system. With no other visuals other than what's shown on their tiny screens, the game leaves tons up to the imagination, but audibly, absolutely freaking nails it. The conversations that you have with these people are engaging, fun, and surprisingly strange, giving everybody a distinct and memorable personality.
What? What do you want?
Got a minute, sir? KPD.
Oh God, they're here! The cleaners are here!
What is it?
What's up with the lockdown? Is it the phage? Was there an outbreak?
Well, we can't rule that out. For now, you better stay in your apartment.
Well, what the hell else am I gonna do? Wait, why am I talking to you? You might be infected! Get away from me!
In the early game, you're walking around this eerie apartment building that's in complete shambles, being given free reign to figure out which doors open, which people answer, and why the hell there's a lockdown. Probably my absolute favorite moment of this entire game was when I was doing exactly this. I was poking around and heard some kids whispering about their mom. Curious, I headed over to the sounds, and after realizing that their apartment door was open, proceeded inside. Right when I made it in, I noticed a computer terminal, and, Fallout style, I went over to read it. The web pages and emails all discuss the nanophage and how it's extremely contagious, even to this day, and how Chiron is lying to you. Why could they have been reading this? Anyway, I then realized that the whispers were coming from behind the door, and after going to check it out, so we explore some more, equipped with our investigative implants and attempting to get to the bottom of this. Eventually, we piece together some puzzles, making our way to our second victim, and here, the game presents you with a pleasant surprise. Remember at the very beginning when Dan said, "When you will remember, that's when they call me"? That's because observers are equipped with a little device called the Dream Eater, which allows them to plug a pin into people's heads to access their memories. In this game though, many of the people that we'll be plugging into have been through some screwed up situations, to say the least, so these sequences aren't pleasant at all.
Hey baby, I'm home.
Średnia śmiertelna dawka zawartej w roślinie skropolaminy wynosi 0,1 do 0,2 gramów. Szmatki zgonu w podawce 1 mg. Pochodna. Butylowana fiasycyny. Stosowana w medycynie w celu przewodu pokarmowego, dróg żółciowych, wodu moczowego.
This is where we begin to smell some layers of fear. With no holds barred and puzzles all throughout, plugging into these people presents you with scenes that seem to be pulled straight from their darkest and most screwed up nightmares. This is what gives this game such a massive strain of uniqueness. It's a multi-layered experience, which presents both the real-world disturbances of cybernetics and the mind-melting horrors of your darkest fears. Our first victim, Amir Noak, for example, is a former convict that met his wife at a club after serving time in prison. As you might expect, we take a mind-melting trip through his life, and visually, these are absolutely stunning. The narratives that come with these are presented in such a way that you're engaged and on the edge throughout, while never overstaying their welcome.
Amir, do you remember the night we met?
It's hard to forget.
The further you progress into the game, the more you're presented with questions and answers. There was a moment when I was literally just exploring, soaking it all in, and seeing what surprises I could run into, and out of nowhere, I found myself in a woman's apartment. After proceeding into the next room, I expected to see a computer room or something, but what I found was even weirder.
Thing is fucking fried. The lockdown probably didn't do it any favors. Better not touch it.
She's hooked up to this big-ass thing. What the hell happened to her? Quick heads up, this wasn't a main mission either. This was totally optional. And yes, you can plug into her head as well. Without spoiling too much, I just wanted to say that I did not expect this game to unnerve me this much. The way that the apartment building changes on each floor and messes with you when poking around it is haunting, and it's definitely left me with some of the most memorable exploration sequences that I've ever had. Speaking of memorable exploration, in the late game, you're given a good amount of stealth missions. The dream sequences that you play through are plagued with a monster that's out to get you, and your goal, much like Soma, is to avoid it at all costs to make your way to the next corridor. I was spotted a few times, and let me just tell you that I was reminded very quickly how badly my anxiety spikes whenever I'm being chased. I just can't shake the underlying themes in this game. I want to stay in it. I want to learn more. What's it like in an A-class district? B-class? Also, is there a D-class? Throughout Observer, you're able to acquire patient cards, which show victims of this nanophage plague that ravaged this society. These show us that, ultimately, this disease did not discriminate. People from all walks of life and all societal classes were affected by this, resulting in a war that decimated the population further, and a megacorporation that, and I say this in the most sarcastic way possible, swooped in to save the day. This, in its entirety, created a divide unlike any other, resulting in the C-class being largely forgotten and left in shambles, while A and B are living happily. Or so they think. Through those computer terminals we mentioned earlier, we're able to get some more insight into how bad this ranking really screws people. The C-class is neglected, they don't get cybernetic maintenance, they get denied any decent job, and are generally treated like scum by the rest of the general population. On Amir's computer, for example, There was email after email of him getting denied jobs, and he had a webpage pulled up of the ones that he was actually qualified for. All of these were in incredibly hazardous working conditions, and it's goddamn heartbreaking. The societal divides that are presented in this game get you thinking, and I really haven't stopped. Observer, from beginning to end, is an absolute masterpiece. Going from door to door to question residents, to embarking on an absolute mind trip through people's worst nightmares, the game shines in an area of horror that I didn't think I'd see again for a long time. In a way, I'm actually grateful that I'd never heard of this game before playing it, because I went in with zero expectations and just ran with it. At times, it felt like the game was playing me, giving me an experience that establishes a baseline of identity before twisting and molding into a hellish nightmare that only somewhat resembles what I initially thought it would become. Rutger Hauer, most notable for his work in the 1980s classic, Blade Runner, is our Daniel Lazarski, and it's so beautifully fitting. His voice acting, coupled with the haunting atmosphere, emphasis on exploration, and nightmarish Dream Eater sequences, have given me an experience that I'll definitely be revisiting many times. Oh, and also, I'll never say the word fuck the same way again. So I know this video was totally out of left field and all over the place, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to share with you this criminally underrated game. If you can afford Observer, please do yourself a favor and get it. Play it, explore it, soak it all in, because at only 8 hours of runtime, it seriously feels a bit too short. But if that's my only complaint about a game, then I really don't think that's a bad thing. Bloober Team, please make Observer 2. Please, for all things great in mind-melting cyberpunk horror. And thank you. I'll see you in the next one. I love you all. And good night.